Hi everyone, I'm Mitsu Frazier and I'm so happy to be with you today with Western Governors University and our School of Business. Just to make sure that the sound is decent in the room, can you just give me a nod in the back? And then for those that are dialing in online, maybe you can use the chat just to confirm that we're good to go. Okay, perfect. I am just so happy to be here. You know, it's such a great opportunity to get to partner with employers and business leaders who are making waves in our community, making waves in our country, and are creating such value, both for consumers, but also for our students. And so I am very pleased to introduce a few close colleagues, and I think we can call them friends now, from T-Mobile. I was gonna pretend to answer the phone, but I'm gonna let that one go. T-Mobile, if you're not familiar, is the #1 in telecommunications. There is not a provider that is serving our country the way that T-Mobile is, both in terms of education and telecommunications. And they also serve as a massive employer, over just almost 100,000 employees that are currently working and serving for T-Mobile. So as I go down the line, I'd love to introduce Dr. Keisha King from T-Mobile, serves as the head of education and strategy. Dr. Ann Clancy, our national representative for T-Mobile, and we've got a chance to work together quite a bit lately, so it's good to see you again. And Joshua Sine, our vice president here in the School of Business at WGU. I think there's just a special nod to Dr. King because she's also a WGU alum and a graduate of our MBA program.
Let's go.
So I'd love to set the stage just to make sure we're all on the same page. One of the best things about WGU is that we are in the business not only of educating our students, but creating an opportunity to connect workforce and education. It is not enough anymore to issue a degree, and we are in the business of making sure that our students are leaving with a degree in hand, with the competencies and the skills to be impactful in the workforce. But even more importantly now is providing an opportunity for our students, prospective students, and alumni to find a way to cut the line, to get an opportunity to engage with employers so that they can consider furthering their career, change careers, jump onto a new S-curve, and in many cases have their first day of work in a safe place while they're here at WGU. So we're gonna discover a couple different topics today. We'll get started talking a little bit about how we connect real-world opportunities with education. And at T-Mobile, you have a variety of internships and many, many, many jobs. I was on your website yesterday. Many, many jobs from early entry positions to extremely advanced executive level roles. I'd love to hear a little bit about the organization and what you're offering.
I'd love to talk about it. Yeah, T-Mobile has a lot of internships, and it's very easily found on our website. Right now, there's we just got over the big push for the summer internships, but there's still internships open. But there's also a rolling opportunity for internships at many of our regional offices, including our headquarters in Bellevue. Beyond the internships, though, we have a great culture of creating a pipeline for growth. And that happens in a lot of ways, from offering entry-level positions. A lot of our executives actually entered T-Mobile through our retail stores and worked their way up. T-Mobile invests in their employees. We have robust and generous education offerings, and one of which is being able to obtain degrees with WGU. And the commitment is that within 3 years, T-Mobile would like to see their employees be able to move up the chain, right? Whether that's through our own internal training, career growth, or through formal education in our partnerships like WGU.
That's great. There's a QR code on the screen for those in the room, and then for those online, you're welcome to capture the QR code. It'll take you to T-Mobile's internship and career opportunities. Encourage you to take advantage of that. including WGU on your resume, whether you're currently a student or you have finished a program, always gives you the upper hand, especially when Dr. King is screening those interviews. So I would encourage you to take the opportunity to do that and get involved. T-Mobile's built its brand on being high energy, on being collaborative, on being innovative. It's rare when I'm in the room with T-Mobile that I don't see and feel their presence. I'd love to hear a little bit about how that translates into the people that you hire when you're thinking about skills or competencies that they bring.
Sometimes we're a little too much fun. You know, when you see the magenta, you just want to like whip out your pom-poms and start partying. That's been my experience here. And obviously being a lifelong educator and then coming into a telecom company like this has been a non-traditional journey, to say the least. For me in the interview process, I mean, I think I've transitioned to really looking for an entrepreneurial mindset. Someone that's coming in and wants to own the business, right? They really want to understand what are the goals of the organization? What outcomes are you seeking to move and make happen? What programs are you leading? What type of segmentation are you hoping to inspire through your work? And then how can I come in as a recent grad or a budding professional or someone who's been, in education for years or in technology for years? How can I come in and really contribute to that system so that I can help you to innovate and I can actually own a part of the business? That's a different conversation than you coming in and just showing a resume and saying, here's the skill set I have to offer. What does that actually translate to when you're coming into the organization? And I feel like you can't answer that question if you don't really sit and ask questions about the organization that you're going into. Know a little something before you sit across the table, right?
So it sounds like some of the skills you're looking for are the innovative, creative, curiosity elements of a person. But then it also sounds like power skills, things like communication, working through ambiguity are equally important.
100%. I mean, and it's a lot of what's built into WGU's program, right? I remember when I initially enrolled, a couple days later, I was like, oh my God, what did I do? I'm always on plane, trains, and automobiles, kids, dogs, all the things, right? And I think my story is not too dissimilar than most of the students that come to WGU. But I quickly realized that, hey, this was the right program. And I don't have to feel super overwhelmed because, I mean, my advisor was absolutely amazing. That's just go Tanya. But it is one of those programs where all of the things that you look for as an employee, as a hiring manager, you have an opportunity to practice that skill set throughout this program, particularly when you're building the capstone.
Yeah,
right?
good point.
That experience and understanding marketing and supply chain, finance, making big business decisions and seeing how they impact overall projects, right? How they impact the business, understanding legal ramifications and human resource decisions. Those are all things that play into the work that I do. A lot of times when you meet business leaders, sometimes you think about them in terms of just a small segment. Dr. Clancy and I lead a $10.7 billion initiative. We touch every single area of the business through that work. WGU is doing a great job of preparing students to be a part of our team.
It's really relevant. I think one of the areas that we're constantly talking about is that when students enter the School of Business, whether it's for a marketing degree or it's for a finance degree, we have an obligation to help them touch all the pieces of business. There will be a time in your life where you have to understand the elements of marketing. When you're in finance, you have to understand how to do a P&L when you're in HR. There's all the pieces to running a business that we feel are necessary. And as such, each one of our students, regardless of degree, does get a chance to work through the entire business approach. Which is where we get the tagline, I think. It's kind of the foundation of that tagline that you often hear, that WGU School of Business is moving at the speed of business. And there's nobody who knows that better than you, Josh, and maybe you can kind of share what that means. And I imagine there's some pieces of that you feel at T-Mobile as well.
Yeah, absolutely. As we sort of try our best to incorporate what's happening in the business world, it means staying up to date with industry and the complexities, the constant changes, the evolution, whether that's technology-based, that's personnel-based, that's global supply chain-based. How do we incorporate that in the moments that matter most for our students and for our faculty to be able to meet the demand of what industry is expecting out of that particular population as they move forward? And within our curriculum, that's one thing, but then as it evolves into the workforce, and curious as T-Mobile is seeing constant changes, and as the industry has been impacted by artificial intelligence or agentic AI or other areas, how are you preparing your employees to move at the speed that the business needs?
I can say that very much like your tagline, one of ours is "we won't stop," right? And I think it really matches nicely is that we just keep driving forward. We keep moving forward to gain, the most trust from the consumers and the best network and the most opportunities to grow and to be the best at the world and connecting people to their world. That requires a lot of skills and a lot of collaboration. And I think that the biggest thing that I see is when we are successful, it is because our team members can come together and understand all the different pieces of the business, collaborate, communicate, and execute in a way that everybody understands what's doing it, and we can kind of do it almost like an orchestra, right? We complement each other and it goes together, but we wouldn't be complete if there weren't all these pieces working together. Yeah. And that also requires adaptability, because when I started in this role 4 years ago, what I'm doing now is completely different. I've had to adapt it over the last 4 years, and every single person that I work with has had to adapt it over the last 4 years. If you read anything about T-Mobile, you can see how much we've acquired. We've acquired business, we've grown business. All of that also creates some cultural change within the business, right? And so your students are understanding and being prepared while they're learning to be able to be adaptable to those changes too.
I mean, a lot of the power skills that are offered inside the School of Business programs they're not technical. They're not necessarily how to balance a P&L or how to, debits and credits for those of you that are in the accounting field.
That's in there.
That's in there. But also in there are how to have critical conversations, how to engage in crucial conversations, how to negotiate. Yeah. These elements that sometimes people bypass as just a thing you do, but actually have real skill connected to them and are a foundation to all of the programs that we offer inside the School of Business.
Yeah. What was really interesting, a lot of that I was able to see through interacting with other students in the program. Right. And when you think about WGU, it is a tremendous opportunity to network. I remember someone saying before, the only difference between what school you go to is who you go with. WG is one of those places that positions you to actually have access to who you go with. Imagine if you're an emerging student or a returning professional and you're next to the head of education for T-Mobile or someone else that's a hiring manager in an organization or a human resources representative, and you're all sitting at the same table having the same conversations, struggling with the same concepts, right, together, and you're overcoming those things together. You're sharing that knowledge base. I have a team member that is a WGU student now, and Dr. Clancy works very closely with her. But I have another team member that decided to go to a different university, and both of them have very full lives. The one that went to the other university, it was a lot because they had to meet at a certain time every night for the classes. They had to have projects due on a certain day. I mean, it was very regimented. The flexibility and the value proposition in WGU is the ability to actually manage WGU around the context of your life and what the demands of your life require. I hate to say I'm probably one of the demands in my employees' lives sometimes. It's not me, it's the company. But it is really awesome to have team members that feel so good about being able to pursue higher education and still have littles and still, travel and manage these big initiatives and they don't feel like they're falling behind. That's an amazing feeling as a leader, to know you're leading people that feel that way and they can still advance their professional careers.
If I could tug on that thread a little bit, because I work really closely with the WGU student right now. And what I really love about it is I can see every week where she's progressing in her skill set, and she's bringing that to our work. And she's using our projects and our real life to progress in her outputs as well as her studies. And it's really exciting to see. And that is something that we notice, right? So we make note of that, right? To your point, Mitsu, is if we see a WGU student, we're like, oh, we know what they can bring.
Yeah. That's so great.
Yeah, and I think that speaks to, in real person, the speed of business and what we're trying to accomplish in the School of Business, which is accommodating those pivots, right? And employing our students to find those skills and that skill set that's going to drive that relationship within the workplace, but also the strong outcomes of performance in the workplace.
It shows up in lots of different ways. I think I like that you've acknowledged that you can do big things and you can also be a student. Our content is built by humans that are doing that. We have people on our team who have new babies that know what it's like to have to get up at 2, 3, and 4 a.m. and also recognize the value of education. Or that are working every day and then going to soccer practice and recognize that their content that they're building still has to fit for someone who has all of those things and has a full-time job. So sometimes it's nice to know that the people behind the work, the creation of these programs, are just like you. They are us. We are you. And we hope that you see and you feel that in the nimble nature of our content, in the connection to workforce, and also the applicability to real life. Whether or not you're in the workforce or not, those negotiation skills could be great at home too. So with that, these partnerships are a big part of trying to bring the workforce to our students and our alumni. I would love to hear how you're benefiting from these partnerships, how WGU collaborating with T-Mobile is making your life easier, and how it's creating a streamlined opportunity for people to come and contribute to T-Mobile.
So I think first and foremost, to be able to see our team grow in their skills and their ability is a huge just benefit that we get to realize, right? I think the fact that WGU makes it approachable and attainable for employees to be able to further their education. And as a company, we know what that output is going to look like is another big, huge part of the partnership. But I think it's deeper than that. And I think that it also goes to being able to have these conversations. Josh and I had the opportunity to be on a panel, a couple months ago together. And one of the things we talked about was that, there's a lot of literature and there's a lot of talk about the skills gap right now. And I'm a big believer that there's really not a skills gap. I'm a believer that we have many students and graduates that have the skills. They're just not matching the same language that we're looking for. Mm-hmm. How do we match what your output really is versus what we're looking for in the right kinds of language in the right context? Because I guarantee you that there's not a gap. We have a language gap, but we have an understanding gap, and maybe a little bit of a cultural gap between industry and higher education. Sure. And I think WGU does a good job of trying to close that, but we still have some work to do. And these conversations and the conversations that we have help to close that, because we can better understand what you're looking to output from the students and what we're looking to hire from a skills perspective. And so I think that's a really big benefit of these types of partnerships.
Josh, we've been doing this pretty regularly now, being intentional about selecting well-recognized, well-represented organizations to partner with the School of Business. What are you seeing in terms of progress for our students?
Yeah, I to Anne's point, it's building that translation component into our programming. So it's allowing us to take from industry leaders, adopt their best practices, learn those at a subject matter expert level within our associate deans and directors who are bringing a capability to connect to what industry expects. And so these conversations are helping to inform that. When I think about the partnership that brings quality students to the classroom, to work asynchronously with colleagues, like Dr. King mentioned. I don't know if folks know they had someone who manages $10.7 billion sitting at the table with them, having a conversation around leadership or management, and that helps to bring up the level of expectation for students, but also connect them to a network of success. And I think ultimately that's the web we're trying to build and wrap for our students, is finding that clear parallel or linear path so that our students leave with a vision of clarity as to where they can expect to work, and with a connection and network of success that will help to get them there.
Yeah, I kind of take away two things. First, when we create these connections, it does give our students an upper hand when T-Mobile sees Western Governors University on the resume. You're looking at a resume, you understand the quality and the ability to work through ambiguous space, the depth of knowledge that a student would bring as a graduate. And then secondly, by having these connections, our students can feel secure about the content that they're consuming, that we have individuals like Dr. King and Ann helping us to build the content, which means then that you're getting real world competencies that are coming from industry leaders, which is better than you'll ever get from a textbook that was published in 1942.
We have case studies too. I'm happy to share them with you.
There you go. No case studies. No, not today. Not today. Competency-based education, it's a thing that comes up all the time. I was at the airport this morning and I was wearing a WGU jacket, and someone said, "You're competency-based." And I didn't, is that a question? Or are you just, yes, we are. Is that coming up in the conversation at T-Mobile? When you think about competency-based, what is your organization thinking about in terms of a prepared graduate?
I mean, within our organization, and then within the broader conversation that I hear, it's about mastery more than anything. Do you have the skills that are necessary to do the job and to do the job well? That's the conversation that's coming up. It's not, you're competency-based, or you're this, or you're accredited, you're well-known, you have proven and stood the test of time, you have great content and a tremendous support system built into the process. Those are all things that prepare folks to go into the workforce in a way that we need them to. We need folks that are nimble and understand flexible, processes to implement things. We need folks who can get to the finish line in the most efficient way possible, right? Of course, I can say, okay, we have a year to build this program, and here's what it's going to look like. Well, T-Mobile's known for being the uncarrier. You think the uncarrier wants to take a year if we don't have to? No. We want a student that can say, hey, yeah, this class for someone else might take 6 months, but, for me, it's going to take 2, and let's see how, right? And by the way, I've already done most of these concepts, and I'm able to master them really quickly, or I have a math mind, and this comes easier for me. So I can get through this content, and I can really take my time on the areas that I want to develop. So when I do join somewhere like the Uncarrier, I can take a year project and turn it into a 3-month initiative. That's something special. And I can say, oh, we're doing it this way, but have you thought about these other 4 things that we can potentially do? That's what's exciting. And I think it aligns really well with industry and what we would like to see from the people that we're bringing into our organizations. And right now, I mean, would you call the job market an A+? It's a tough place, right? It's a tough world out there. And I think that being a WGU graduate and having the skill set to be able to have the flexibility to efficiently get to where the organization needs you to get to makes all the difference in the job market right now.
Let's talk about the job market for just a second, because it's not A+ today, and it's hard to even consider what it will look like in 5 years.
Yeah.
I would love to hear, for those individuals in the room, the ones that are online that have their resume pulled up and are thinking about, I've printed this thing, or I've emailed this thing, or I've submitted it 50 times in the last week. What are you looking for, and what do you think are necessary attributes that a person should consider when they want to put their best foot forward for a position? And I guess I'd ask that question two different ways. One is now, and then what might be different in 5 years from now?
So it's a tough one, because what I know of applying for jobs even 5 years ago is very different than what it is now, because we didn't have AI screeners and all of those things. One of the things I can say about T-Mobile is that we use real people, and so that does help.
Shocking.
We look at every
We do use real people,
Every resume.
and so does your resume tell a story? And you're going to hear me talk about stories probably more than you want to, but I think the story is really important. And there's all these rules about, you want to have enough white space and you want it to be on one page. That depends, right? So sometimes toss out the rules and tell the story in the way that makes sense to you, that you want to share it with the person that you're going to be that's going to be hiring you. And I think that's what's really important. Those skills in that story are also important. So what is it that you bring to the table? I'm not going to mention that I have a great attention to detail, because I'm a really big picture thinker. And so I'm going to tell the story that I'm a visionary and that I'm a strategic thinker and I'm a planner. It doesn't go along well with me being really great at attention to detail. I know how to pull on people to help me with that, right? So that's the story that I want to tell. What's the story that you want to tell? And that's what I would say about applying and the resumes, and where can you play on those strengths in that when you're reading your resume, can you find those strengths that you want to say about what makes you special stand out?
Yeah. Can I piggyback on that?
Yes, if you would, I'd love it.
One thing that I'm noticing in the job market and folks they're out there searching, they feel like they have to be able to do all the things. Like, I need to know all the AI, I need to know all the systems, I need to be able to answer all the questions. That's just not reality. Reality is, inside of these big, huge companies, we're trying to move as fast as we can, but we also understand there are folks that are novice users internally that are already in here. You don't think that when you come in, we have to make sure that we meet you where you are? Yes, that is a thing. No leader, I can't say no, but 99.9% of leaders do not have the expectation that you will know 100% of all the things before you come. Just come in with the transparency and the willingness and the excitement to have the same flexibility, the same efficiency that you had going through these programs and all of these courses. Just come in with that as your baseline, and you will be absolutely fine. I think, when you get kind of in this dire place and you've applied over and over and over again, and you just get so exhausted, you start feeling like you have to say all the answers, right? Like, okay, the job is asking for all these things. I know all of them. And if they ask me a question, I'm going to try to upskill enough in 2 seconds so that I can act like I know. Yes, I know Tableau and I know Power BI, and you've never touched them. It is okay to be okay with where you are and approach the workplace as if it is a competency-based model.
I was just going to say that. Can I go back to the competency-based conversation really quick? Because it really ties into this. First of all, I just want to say that I'm a huge fan of competency-based education. Yeah. It's not easy to execute. Yeah. So, kudos to WGU, because it is difficult, but that is real world. Because that is how we assess our employees, is by competency. It's not by can you get through, a 16-week semester and pass an exam? It's by, can you get through these competencies? Are you worthy of getting a promotion because you can do X, Y, and Z? That is how we work in the real world. So that model is just relevant.
It's so helpful. Josh, you're on the other end. I mean, you are also hiring as an employer, but you're also creating content and degrees that set our students up to be hired. Do you have perspective that you want to share here?
Yeah, I think back to Anne's point, it's being able to own your narrative, and where we try to scaffold in some of those opportunities throughout the academic journey is based off of, those moments of being able to take practical, applied coursework and form that into a portfolio of success stories. To Dr. King's point, you're not going to know all the things. You're not going to have done all of the things. But what have you owned? How can you share that ownership in a way that demonstrates the skills that employers are looking for? And then from a curricular design standpoint, how are we connecting that story and that journey throughout the program? So it doesn't feel like disparate marks. It feels like a journey that is connected and directionally focused on the end result, which is ending up at a place like T-Mobile. And, from an interviewing standpoint, as I talk to candidates, my goal is to not necessarily vet every skill possible, but it's to see that there is a baseline desire to work, to commit, to focus, and to deliver the outcomes that we want. Here at WGU, that's student focus. So for me, one of those things is student obsession. I have to know that you're passionate about that end result, and that end result is something that you will work day and night about. Like, what's your why? And if you can communicate your why along with that narrative of your successes, and it connects to our mission, then I think we got to win. And I think that's what organizations are looking for.
Yeah, it's so helpful to hear that. We also have a great Career Services Center. So for those of you that are in the room or online, the Career Services Center is here to help support the resume creation, mock interviews, to help you get prepared to have that dialogue as you're thinking about your next role or your first role or your fifth role. Just depends on where you are in your world. I want to wrap up in a minute just so that we have time to take questions, both from folks here in the room, but also folks online. I would say there are no questions that are off limits. The whole goal here is, to ask the questions that might help the largest population of people as folks are getting ready to make career changes and shifts. So please put your questions in online and we'll make sure to synthesize those and do our best to answer them. Maybe just one last piece of feedback for prospective students, for existing students, for alumni, as they're thinking about future-proofing their career.
Treat your brand like a career.
Okay.
Anyone who's connected with me on LinkedIn, I treat my LinkedIn and my brand like it's another job. I actually set aside time outside of my time in order to build that as a part of how I want to show up in the world. And so I think that piece is really critical. Studies show that employers are spending about 6 times more time on your social or your online footprint than they are on your resume. And so what is your social footprint? What does it communicate? And what message is it sending out to the employers that are taking the time to actually click and go look, right? They're going to say, they didn't take 30 seconds to put a cover photo. Like, it's small, but LinkedIn gives them to you. So you don't have to go make one, just pick one. Pick the WGU banner, screenshot it off the website and stick it up there. I think the second thing that I would say is know how to articulate your ownership. One thing you said, articulate, communicate. You have these buzzwords. Know how to articulate it. There's a difference between, me coming up here and saying, well, yeah, I was a teacher and I work for T-Mobile and I do some education stuff, versus me saying, I was a teacher, a principal, executive director in a district of 70,000 kids. I lead a $10.7 billion initiative in a Fortune 40 organization. Know how to articulate what you do, what you've done. And it's not bragging. It is merely saying, I actually own something, and that something is important to the world. Figure out what that is and how to articulate it, and what it means to the rest of your journey.
It's great feedback. Appreciate that. Anne, what about you?
So mine's a little different. I think mine's about knowing your why. What is your passion and what is your purpose, and going for that. And that comes through, that shines through in your brand, right? My brand is not like Dr. King's is. Mine is not a social. Mine is, you know what? Everybody knows that Anne cares. Everybody knows that Anne's kind, right? That's my brand, and that's what I lead with. And so know what that is, and that's going to take you to where you need to go. But so that's authenticity, really, in a nutshell, right? And when you're telling that story and when you're sharing that story, that authenticity also comes through. And I think that those are things that are really important. One of the things that I tell my kids who are all college age and beyond is, nothing's a life sentence. So whatever you're doing right now, if you don't love it, you can pivot. And so as long as you know that it still aligns with your why and who you are as a brand, that you can pivot that, and it can be a squiggly, nonlinear journey, and that's okay too. Pivoting and changing is also super important and valuable, and you bring a lot of different skills when you're able to do that too. So that was a lot more than one thing, but I think that those are things that are really important that's carried me, and those are the same things that I tell my own kids.
Yeah, mine would be sports fanatic. So get a lot of at-bats. That can look in a lot of different ways right now with AI. You can practice interviewing. You can get help with resume. You can step outside of your comfort zone. I think the idea of being comfortable, being uncomfortable is an area of opportunity. And if you want something, I use the baseball analogy because batting 300 is, you get paid millions of dollars. And when we think about our next opportunity, our next step, if you don't get at bats and you're putting everything in on, one at bat, it's going to be really challenging to find success there. So put yourself out there. The thing I was talking to my son this morning, and there's three things you can really control in your life. That's your effort, that's your attitude, and that's your execution. And so making that a framework for how you're going to approach the next opportunity gives you a little more control than just sitting back and waiting for it to come to you. Get out there.
I think I'd wrap it up. Those are great ones. I'd wrap it up with just look up. More and more, it feels like people aren't looking up. Whether you're walking in the airport and people are head down and on their phone, or you sit in the airline seat and you immediately put your headphones in and you look down at your phone, everybody notices. And whether you recognize it or not, it is slowly creating a brand for you too. And that brand is first likely created at home, because those habits start in your home. You're just always busy, always on your phone. Look up and recognize that there are people that are looking at you and hoping that you'll take a moment to engage in a conversation. All it takes is one connection to suddenly create momentum and new connections and the next thing, and suddenly you realize you got somewhere and it was divine intervention, but really it was because you just looked up and you paid a little bit of attention. So in an interview just recently, and the individual had their phone at the table. In what world would you ever answer a text or a phone call in an interview? Zero. Well, you might, but then the interview is probably over. But the fact that you even have it on the table suggests that I have a competing priority. So leave it in your bag and just look up. So I think, between all of those things, there's opportunity that awaits, and the best things are still yet to come. And we'd love to kind of swing it around and take some questions from the audience. We're going to push those questions, kind of theme them together and push them here. You'll see me continuously looking to the right to try to grab those. But I think the first question, and I'll try and assign them accordingly, but as T-Mobile continues expanding into AI-driven processes and digital transformation, what skills do you believe that young professionals should focus on in terms of developing in the space of AI?
Building GPTs to solve problems, real problems. So one thing T-Mobile did was introduce an enterprise version of ChatGPT. And every single member of the organization had to go through 101, 102, 103, and 104. But it was very interactive. You know, they brought in these experts in the field to talk about these practical uses. They did these walkthroughs where, you know, you have your screen up, they have their screen up, and you are literally on the job working. And then they did kind of like a big internal hackathon where you pull all these business problems and you use the enterprise version ChatGPT and you build a GPT, which is an AI twin engine. You build that and you put in the business problem and you start to feed it information so they can help you solve the business problem more efficiently and at scale. Learn how to do that for your own life, for the problems that you're seeing, kind of that you're facing regularly, even in the classes that you're taking. Start using artificial intelligence to solve some of those business problems, right? So that when you get into industry, as the business has problems, you can more efficiently solve those problems. That would be my biggest advice.
I would say that, and then learn how to communicate it in your own words. So what do you learn? How do you, we can do things so much faster now, right? We can get data and tell a story from data, but then how do I translate that so it's my own authentic language, sharing that story? See what I did there? But that's what needs to happen after we learn how to use the AIs.
And remove the M dashes, right?
Oh my goodness, the dashes.
They just had an update 2 days ago, and now when you tell it to remove M dashes, it will listen to you.
Interesting.
That is a new,
I did
it's a
like
new
the
thing.
M-dash or N-dash. You got to decide which one. I don't think your point can be understated, especially in the applications and resumes that we're seeing regularly. It is obvious that none of it was reviewed or thought through by a human. It is just, and in some cases it says, the ChatGPT language down at the bottom. It's like at the very least, delete that section. But using human perspective to overlay any ChatGPT or AI-based work is key.
Even data. Even
too.
entering data sets into a Power BI, it needs to be reviewed because I think all of us have probably learned that, AI can hallucinate and you got to check it.
Yep,
Even for somebody who doesn't like attention to detail.
For sure. And from an efficiency standpoint, to Dr. King's point, it can be an absolute partner along that journey, but you can't get lost in losing your voice. It's still a human touch. There's still human elements. There's still going to be human work that needs to be done, but it can be a powerful tool.
Absolutely.
And I think that speaks to the nuances,
Yep.
right? So often we do feed all this information from an AI perspective, but those nuances are very unique to the human experience. Mm-hmm. And so don't forget about those components when you're trying to now take it and articulate it and bring it into the world.
This next question, I wish you were here because we have a celebration for you. Currently in retail sales as a store manager and finishing an MBA in April. Congratulations.
Let's go.
What is the best advice for someone who wants to transition to the corporate side? Thoughts?
Well, I came from education into telecom, so I don't think anything is impossible. I think it's definitely possible. My biggest advice is that you're in the company. You have the whole network right in front of you, right? So
Network.
Oh my goodness, network. I think where people sometimes miss the mark with networking though, because you'll hear people say, oh, I'm at this networking event, I'm at this conference, I met all these people, and then you never talk to them again. You don't actually network. Like the networking is what happens after you meet the people, after you encounter them. So stop sitting around asking people to be your mentor and put them in a position to actually want to continue talking to you. As a business leader, the number one thing that I love more than anything is outcomes. I want to know that I influence an outcome. All you have to do is talk to me on a Monday and then email me on the next Monday and say, as a result of our conversation, I have now done XYZ. I'd love to talk to you again. That is like all I ever want to do. So think about that with the people that you're working with. it's networking, but it's also being able to, like, you don't have to define what the relationship's going to be. Just find a reason to get back on the calendar by saying, hey, you really did. There was an outcome that came from this conversation, and make it real. Like, don't just make it up.
So, I mean, just absolutely. I know, and any of you guys, have you ever said no if somebody said, hey, can we have a conversation? Would you help me with X, Y, and Z?
Once.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think anybody would not want to help somebody who's trying to help themselves. So it's okay to ask, to network, to put yourself out there, but that's the best way to break in, because now your resume is going to go to the top. And you're going to have a recommendation from somebody that you've networked with because they know you and they see the work you've done to get there.
I think hierarchy is it's a creation of our own ability to manage a business. But it only stands in the way if we choose to let it stand in the way. I've always found treating people like people, to these points here, you build an authentic relationship. And once that relationship morphs into a relationship of trust, then you really find a way to connect those dots internally. And I think there's an opportunity when you're working at an organization to find your way up through, seeing a title is just, that's what it is. It's just a title.
That's it.
I would add one other point. I was moved by the fact that first it was retail sales and then moving to corporate. I think there's something pretty beautiful about navigating from, the work to the next stage of work. So I personally find people who have done the core of the role to be the most impactful as they progress in their career. So, I've had the privilege of being at WGU for 18 years and remember every day my roots of being a mentor. And at the end of the day, that role is the closest to our students and I hope makes me better at the work that I do. And as I've progressed through the organization, it's always the thing that I point to in terms of why I'm capable of doing the next job. And so for you to be at a retail store and you know what it's like to have the busy holiday rush, you know what it's like to motivate your team, you know what it's like to schedule when people don't show up, all of those things make you a better corporate or executive leader at the end of the day. So embrace the foundation of the work that you've had as you progress to the next level of your degree. Book recommendations. Awesome. What books have had the biggest impact on your approach, your career, and how you lead teams?
One of my favorite books is a book called How Will You Measure Your Life by Clayton Christensen. He is the father of disruptive innovation, and he unpacks metrics that are outside of business scope that will help him to better understand the impact that he's made. And as I think about that book, it has helped shape and frame how I approach work, which is still a part of my why, and but has also directed me into the path that I've taken. The other book that I really like right now is a book that's called I forgot it. So really impactful book, but Think Again by Adam Grant. And I think where that framing is really valuable is we're so caught up in our own biases at times that we don't rethink why we're doing what we're doing or how we're doing what we're doing. And this book gives you some perspective on just thinking again, how to frame that, why to do it, when to do it. And it's really helped me better understand, my personal biases, but also a new perspective.
Yeah, that's great. I can answer. I think they're kind of fighting over a book. I share a book that I really love with another vice president in the School of Business, Casey Clark. I think he uses it regularly, The Power of Moments. This book, I think, reminds you that there are these impactful moments that are quietly in every room all the time, and you get to choose whether or not you make them a moment or not. There is something as a leader about shocking people by recognizing them, catching them doing something good, finding these moments that aren't real moments to anybody else and making it feel like a moment, and how that can propel a person to be more motivated to do the next thing. It can leave a lifelong imprint. They're those core memories that come from nowhere sometimes. So the power of moments, I think, is a huge one that can be great for anybody in any position, frankly.
So I have a couple. Think Again by Adam Grant. Adam Grant's just a phenomenal author, and I love reading his books, but that's a really good one. I think when that Talking to Strangers by Malcolm Gladwell, that's another one I think that kind of, to your point, Mitsu, is like look up, right? Mm-hmm. Notice who and what's around you. And I think that's a really good, impactful book. And I can't remember the name of the author, but there's a book that I've used often in probably the last 15 to 20 years. It's called How to Lead When You're Not in Charge. Because no matter where you are, even if you are in charge of something, there's always something you're not in charge of. And so it's really, how do you have those conversations, and how do you persuade, how do you negotiate, how do you use whatever power you might have to be a leader? And that's another good one.
Great recommendations.
A couple years ago, my team did Atomic Habits.
Yes.
And I could probably read that book 3 times in a row and still learn something each time I read it. And so I would say it should probably be at the core of your arsenal of books. It just really is this thing that teaches you, yes, there's a journey. However, there's an opportunity where you can capture calling yourself the thing before you're actually the thing in order to motivate becoming the thing. And that is something that fundamentally changed my mindset. It encouraged me to start working out every morning and doing, just stop saying, oh, I really want to run. Okay, go run one day, or go jog or walk or whatever you're going to call it. And then you're a walker for the day. Now you can say I'm a jogger because that's what I'm doing.
I've never heard
What
walk.
do you walk?
It's a walk jog. Oh. It's a walk jog. It's a really nice experience.
It's your thoughts become actions type of situation, right?
Yes.
Yeah, but it's practical.
It's so practical.
Lay your shoes out the morning before so that you can, your workout
Yeah, it's just
clothes.
it's a lot of actionable things that you can actually do every day to change behavior, shape your reality.
I'm going to walk later.
Yeah, walk.
What is the best way to show clear added value as a new hire rather than being viewed as just an outside applicant? Oh man, this is so relevant, I think, right now.
I just had this conversation with a mentee.
Go ahead.
I just had this conversation with one of my mentees the other day because her employer asked her to go and create an AI agent that could find trends in their purchasing data, because they wanted to find out what time of year did customers buy more products and what did that look like. And so I said, well, how do you feel? She said, I feel good. I feel like I'm doing exactly what they're asking me to do, right? And she just came off of internship. They hired her on, and she's super excited. And but she said, I don't feel like I know, in the downtime, I don't feel like I know, what to do other than to go say, hey, is there anything else you need me to do? And she said, and that makes me feel like I'm doing a good job, but I'm not exactly sure if that's what I'm supposed to be doing. And I said, well, there's an opportunity here to think deeper. If you determine, based on the data, that the purchase happens more in the wintertime, well, what happens before then? Right? How do you start looking at the buying cycle? How do you think about the customer journey? What insights can you now put together and bring to your leadership before they ask you? So I think that's a really big opportunity for new hires, is to start thinking deeper about what the actual problem is and what the actual question is, and start bringing that to your leadership team before they ask you for it.
I think one of the most important things you can do as a new hire is know the organization. Right, and I think what that means is different at different organizations, but this idea that we have to make an immediate impact the first 90 days, if you don't know the org well enough to make an impact, I'll give you an example. When I started here at WGU, I thought I had a great idea about a team building activity. And so I recommended that, hey, let's do spaghetti and marshmallows. And you wouldn't believe the response I got, which was, and I thought it was a great idea. But in reality, I didn't know the organization well enough. That doesn't mean don't bring your authentic self, but dive into the data, understand the trends, to Dr. King's point, so that you can start to speak fluent organization as opposed to translating your experiences from your own perspective. You've got to start to look from the employer's perspective. And so if you can start to speak the data, know the metrics from the perspective of your new organization, that's going to start to demonstrate a competency and a skill that you'll use time and time again.
To be fair, though, the employer, whoever they were, they took your idea.
They didn't say a word. They just made fun of me.
So sorry.
That is me.
It's okay then.
I think all of that, all of those things, and
Spaghetti and marshmallows? Is that what you're saying?
I love spaghetti and marshmallows, is to be able to read between the lines, read the culture, understand the nuances that aren't necessarily said. I think as a new hire, if you can observe at the rate that you're learning, you're also going to be really good. Culture is so important, and the culture that you're coming into and understanding that is really important. And that's not always explicitly said. Mm-hmm. It's something you have to pay attention to and watch and find those nuances. Mm-hmm. And I think if you can figure that out early on, that's going to be a huge value add.
I do think adding value sometimes feels like you have to be executing against the job description that you applied for. And a lot of times people ask, what do I do at 30 days, 90, 60 days, 90 days? And so it feels like you need to be executing against something, when really execution may be just a lot of lunches and getting to know the humans that you're working with. Yep. And understanding the language and the lived experiences of the people who have worked there for 10 years. So value looks a lot of different ways, and it's not a terrible idea to simply ask, what does value look like at this point in my career?
Yeah. And it's okay to ask that when you're interviewing. That's okay.
I love this one. How do you, if it presents, manage ageism within both of your organizations? Great question.
Well, I inherited the Sprint education team, right? So I inherited their whole organization. And a part of that was inheriting people at all different stages of their careers. And I think as leaders, we just have a responsibility to nurture that. That's why I say, when we introduced ChatGPT, we didn't say, okay, we're going to start off with the 200 level. No, we started with 101 because we have different levels of intelligences. And honestly, I use ChatGPT every single day. And do you know how much I learned in 101? Mm-hmm. So I think that's really the biggest thing from just an age perspective, is just making sure that you're putting things in place to help everyone be successful in all new business practices. I think also understanding that you're not going to hire anyone that knows everything. And so there are things that more seasoned professionals know and understand fundamentally about business, about human interaction, about empathy, about, the industry, that we will never know unless we bring that type of talent onto our teams.
I can answer the question in a couple different ways. I think first, having experienced being the youngest person in the room for a long period of time, I am very sensitive to what it feels like to have a predisposed bias against someone who is old or young. And so my hope is that we're employing individuals who are hiring that have perspective, have deep understanding of the benefits of hiring a diverse set of humans to work at Western Governors University. Mm-hmm. Secondly, I think that it is such that in today's age, we have needs that are short-term and long-term. And the business is changing and growing so much that it's appropriate to hire people at the early stage or at the back end of their career. There are lots of positions available, and some of those are positioned best for people who do have a short runway. They've made it very clear that I'm in the late stages of my career, and maybe I'm going to work for the next 5 years. Great, because we're going to be great together for 5 years, and the job's going to be so different 5 years from now that that's exactly what we need at this time. or I'm brand new in my career and I have aspirations of growth and change, etc., that's also great because we have a position that is going to help you get to that next stage of your career. So it starts with having a diverse set of humans in the organization that can make these good hiring decisions. I can say that is true at Western Governors University, and I know that's true of T-Mobile as well from my engagement with your organization. When you're dealing with someone, however, that doesn't, then I think you have to address those items, and it's not easy. And that's when having a mentor, being able to role play, engage with a friend or a colleague that can give you advice is really important. And last but not least, when you engage in our content, we hope that we're helping you develop those crucial conversation skills that help you navigate those tricky conversations. We know that that's a big part of the workforce today, and so our degree programs help you get there and help you get the skills to have those articulate discussions.
Yeah, and I'd say that understanding as an applicant what the culture of where you're applying to and what the organization is matches with what you're willing to work through or not. Sometimes that's really relevant within the first or two, or obvious within the first or 2 or 3 interviews, right? And so it's okay to ask those questions too. You can ask that question. I would be super impressed if I had an applicant say, how is T-Mobile handling ageism or other implicit biases? I think that's a great question because that shows that you care about the culture in which you're coming into.
Yeah, I think both organizations have customers at all different ages and levels. And so from a perspective of understanding those unique needs, it's important that we double click into a wide range of individuals serving and supporting. Mitsu talked at the very beginning about, having professionals and experts who are designing curriculum that are coming from industry, but that are also parents and that are, at different stages of their life. And what that allows us is the flexibility to know that we're designing a work environment where we need that breadth of experience across many different variables.
I would just say lastly that we hosted commencement just last weekend, and it was beautifully done in Atlanta. And we announced that our youngest graduate was 16 and that our oldest graduate was just about 70 years old. And so to create content that serves every student, it requires all of us at all ages and all junctures of life to be able to speak to the vast number of humans that are consuming our degree programs. I think we've got time for one last question, and it's a good one. What failures have taught you more about leadership than any success could? So maybe we'll conclude with this question, and can see brains moving and eyes twitching, and
what do we want to be? Where
do you want to start?
I can't think. I mean, I've had so many failures throughout my career. I don't even know where to start, but I had, I don't know, a friend, a coach, a boss, I don't know who told me, but said, but you because you failed, because this didn't work out, it shows that you tried. Like you did the thing and it didn't work out, and that's okay. And so it's better to fail than to just have inaction. And so that's really helped me get through of, okay, I don't know if this is gonna work. We do a lot of trying things out and we don't know if it's gonna work or not, right? But you have to do it. And so I think that I wish I had like a better, more poignant story about failure and coming back. But I think the thing is there's so many failures. I don't even know how to pick just one. But I am stronger and better, more empathetic, and more able to relate to everybody that I work with because of those failures. So I'm not afraid to fail again. And I think that's what I can say about that.
Yeah, I've learned more from my failures than any of my successes, to be candid, but I do have a very poignant story that I still get the cold sweats about. But as an organization, we were hoping to take our orientation on the road, and I empowered team members to lead those particular engagements and trusted without, I think, a situational awareness that was deep enough. And at one particular school, we were notified that we wouldn't be able to use the internet. And this was like a terrible moment because we had 400 students waiting to register for classes. And you know that moment when you think, I should have seen this, I should have known this. We found a workaround because of some challenges, but that workaround really impacted our relationship with that particular high school. And what that led me to learn was that relationships are more important than outcomes. And we could have worked our way through that situation, that circumstance, another way. But we burned a bridge. And there were moments that I could go back and I can still, there's a visceral reaction. I can still see where the gaps were. And what that taught me was that we have the ability to influence people, and people are the most important element within our life, whether it's family, friends, colleagues, whoever it might be, and ensuring that we provide enough room to catch when they fall and enough guidance to support has totally changed and the arc of the way that I led and have led since then. And it's, it's still one of those moments that I think about a lot, actually.
Wow. I think failure is one of those beauty is in the eye of the beholder type of things, right? It depends on the lens that you're looking through and how you perceive the failure. I also have failed a whole bunch in my life. And I think the more you fail, the more tenacity you have around being able to quickly see the failure in a different way, right? Like, anybody been in a car accident before? Anybody been in a car accident you caused before? You don't have to raise your hand. However, some may see that as a failure. Some people, when that happens, when those type of situations happen, beyond like injuries and all that stuff, just that the event happened, some people will see that and it is a huge deterrent. Like for so many other areas, they're like, oh, this is the worst thing that's ever happened. Now I have to do all these things. And now you're like, life is ruined for the next month. Sometimes because you've gone through a lot of failure, you can go through a situation like that. You can go through a car accident or an accident or a traumatic moment, and you're resilient enough to quickly recover. It doesn't mean you don't still have the consequences of the moment when something happened, but it means that you have the mindset to say, okay, now what do I do next? And you can, the faster that you can get into that mindset, the more beneficial it is that you've actually gone through the failure. Like the failure doesn't become the failure, it actually becomes a part of the next narrative. And so that's why I say it's almost like when people say beauty is in the eye of the beholder. Failure, it depends on the lens that you're looking through and the mindset that you have on what it actually means and how long you're going to stay in the failure.
And if you learn and grow from it. Yeah.
That felt very like non-philosophical, but.
No, you have to learn from it. You make the mistake, you learn from it, and then you realize that you don't have to dwell on it because you can pick up and solve problems afterwards.
Yeah. But right now, things are changing so fast. Technology is changing so fast that it almost feels like you're failing every day. Like you do something and you're like, oh man, I should have used that tool, or I should have done it differently, or oh, I put the wrong inputs in and now I got the wrong outputs, or this thing's hallucinating, I got to start all over, or whatever's happening. Like we're in a culture now where if you don't learn how to fail fast, then you're kind of going to be in last place. And so I think actually every time you fail, it just makes you a little stronger for where we actually are today. And I can only imagine where we're going to be 5 years from now. I mean,
think maybe just two things to wrap us up is, to your point, I think things don't always go the way you expect. I'm not actually sure that's failure, though. That's just at-bats. And so I would be inclined to be careful about labeling things as a failure. I think some things do deserve a label of failure, but they're probably far less than we characterize them as. I think, to pick the wrong data set or to create something and get a poor grade, I'm not sure those are failures as if they are just reps. I would save the failures for the weighty items. And then the second thing I would say is that not everything has a Cinderella story. I know for me personally, when I'm talking with someone in an interview, it's somewhat off-putting that everything ends up perfect. I don't identify with that. I think most things don't actually end up perfect, and rather they end up mediocre at best, and it's okay. So if you can own the outcome and then just stop at where it didn't go well, that's not all bad. Owning the idea that it just didn't end well and that, I didn't actually learn anything other than it didn't end well and it didn't feel good, so I tried something else, is a pretty humble thing to say. And there doesn't have to be the pretty bow on the back end of it, period, hard stop. So that's a good way to end. Again, you'll see the QR code here on the screen. There should be one for you online as well. My hope is that this evening you were able to take away something, whether it's a change to your resume, a good idea for future-proofing your career, or just the idea of looking up and introducing yourself to someone over the next few days. We're going to continue to have these conversations with amazing partners like T-Mobile. The WGU School of Business is continuing to move at the School of Business and looking to position you with real-world opportunities every chance we get. And more than anything, we are so grateful for you as our students, as our alumni, and as those who are supporting the School of Business. And we look forward to our next interaction. Hope you have a safe Thanksgiving and a great rest of your week.